Welcome to Allegiance!
Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're talking about a true titan of Portuguese football, Jorge Costa. He was more than just a player. He was a leader, an icon whose entire career was built on grit, glory, and an absolutely unbreakable bond with his club.
So we're going to track his amazing journey. We'll start with the day the football world went quiet for him, and then we'll rewind to see just how a tough kid from Porto became the animal, how he led his team to the very top of Europe, and how he cemented his place in history forever. Our story really has to start on a pretty somber day, August 5th, 2025. The news of his passing came so suddenly, it sent shockwaves not just through Portugal, but honestly, across the entire football world. The Portuguese Football Federation. They put out a statement that was so simple, but it said everything. Portuguese football is in mourning. And that feeling, it was shared by everyone, from rivals to old teammates. It just showed you the kind of respect the man commanded.
Tributes, as you can imagine, just poured in from everywhere. This one, from his longtime friend and national teammate Luis Figo, really captures the loss perfectly. He said, "Football lost a leader, a champion, an example, and my life lost a great friend. Until forever, Captain."
And here's the part that's just so hard to grasp. He was only 53 years old. His life was cut incredibly short by a fatal cardiorespiratory arrest, and it just left this huge, sudden hole in the sport that he gave so much to.
But to really get why his loss was felt so deeply, we have to go back. We need to look at the challenges, the tough times that really forged the man he became.
Before he was this massive icon at FC Porto, he was just a young player who had to prove himself the hard way. He got sent out on loan, first to Penafiel, then to Maritimo. He had to go out there and really cut his teeth in the trenches of professional football. And let me tell you, that journey was not easy. He said it himself, that the first time he ever got dropped from a team when he was a kid at Penafiel, it was a brutal shock. I mean, he'd always played, always been a starter, but that moment, it didn't break him. It just lit a fire inside him that honestly never went out.
And that relentless, almost ferocious way he played the game, well, it earned him the perfect nickname, Bicho, which translates to the animal. And it wasn't a bad thing at all. It was a badge of honor. It perfectly described his spirit as a competitive animal who would never, ever back down.
So, after proving himself on loan, the animal finally came home. And he would go on to become not just a player, but the irreverent, iconic captain of FC Porto, leading the club through its most dominant period ever.
The numbers from his time at Porto are just, well, they're staggering. 21 major trophies. This wasn't just some guy collecting medals. No, this was the absolute heart and soul of the team, the engine behind a whole dynasty of success.
And that success, it covered every competition you can think of. 8 league titles, 5 Portuguese Cups, and then the biggest prizes in club football, the UEFA Cup, the Champions League, and the Intercontinental Cup. I mean, that is a truly legendary trophy cabinet.
And his impact wasn't just limited to his club. He was an absolute giant for his country. All in all, he earned 118 caps across all of Portugal's national teams, 50 of those for the senior squad, and he was even a world champion at the under-20 level. Of course, with a personality that he himself described as, "I boil in little water," you're going to have some controversy. There was this one famous incident where he was accused of throwing his captain's armband on the ground. He always insisted, the story is a lie. Yes, it fell to the ground, basically saying it was just an accident in a heated moment.
But that fiery personality, it eventually led to a huge falling out with the coach, Octavio Machado, which saw him forced into this brief, pretty shocking exile. But as it turns out, that huge setback just paved the way for the most heroic chapter of his entire career.
So he gets loaned out to Charlton in England, and then he gets recalled by the new manager, some guy named Jose Mourinho. And what happened next was just a spectacular 2-year journey. First, he captained the team to a UEFA Cup victory in 2003, and then the ultimate prize, lifting the UEFA Champions League trophy in 2004. Now, you'd think the Champions League would be his most cherished memory, right? But Jorge Costa saw it differently. When people would ask him which final was more special, he'd always say, "Many people ask me that question, But the final is the one in Sevilla. It was the first one. For him, that first big European trophy, after the exile and his big comeback, that one meant everything.
So, after hanging up his boots, that massive passion for the game just couldn't keep him away. He started a new career as a football manager, taking all that leadership he had on the pitch and bringing it to the dugout.
And his coaching career really became this global journey. He managed clubs in Portugal, in Romania, where he actually won a league title with Cluj, and in Tunisia. He even managed the national team of Gabon and a top club in India, Mumbai City. He went everywhere.
But for a man so deeply, so profoundly connected to one club, his path was always going to lead him back home, back to FC Porto, where he was and always will be an absolute legend. And in the end, his story just came completely full circle. He'd been the warrior captain on the field, the Bicho, who basically was the fighting spirit of the club. And then, in 2024, he came back as the director of professional football, ready to lead its future from off the pitch. And it all leaves you with this one big question. What makes a player truly eternal? Is it the trophies they win? Is it the grit they show on the field? Or is it a loyalty that just never, ever fades? For Jorge Costa, the answer is pretty simple. It was all of it. He was and always will be the eternal dragon.